Hey guys, what's up? It's Lainey, and today I am filming the video I have wanted to film since 2016. How I got my agent story, because that's right, I now have a literary agent. You're probably like, whoa, how did this all happen? Because you never even said you were querying. And that's true, and I'll go into kind of all the steps it took for me to get my agent. I can't believe I get to say this. I am now represented by L. Thompson at Triada US. I am so excited. I'm so pumped. This is for Cruel Family, which you guys have heard me talk about this project since 2018. It is truly, truly the book of my heart because it is the book that made me realize how much I love writing fantasy romance, because that's what Cruel Family is. And of course, Cruel Family was just the title that I've been calling it for project purposes. I really don't know if the title will stay this way, but the title that I queried it is The Serpent Court. If you don't know at all, this is the project that is pretty much the Borgia family meets Cruel Intentions. It has all my favorite things. It has a priest love interest. It has a love triangle. It has a lot of religious undertones and politics. It's a court intrigue book. I based it off of Roman Catholicism because that is what I was raised as. It has this main character who is fighting her villainy because her family is very villainous and she's just trying to do the right thing, but her journey throughout the story is, can she, basically. So this is going to be a story time because I love reading all of these How I Got My Agent blog posts that writers have. It has both, I mean, I'll be honest, it's both given me jealousy but also encouraged me at the same time. So I really hope that kind of this story time of this journey of how I got my agent inspires you, and it just ensures that you'll never give up, because I never gave up and here I am. So the exciting thing about this is that my whole journey is chronicled on my YouTube channel. I first started doing writing vlogs in 2016 with my first novel, Through Villains and Wolves, which was a Red Riding Hood retelling, but mostly a continuation where it kind of followed her in her teen years. So that was the first book that I ever completed. Therefore, it was the first book that I queried. And I did talk about the querying process in those videos in 2016. I did get some interest, but obviously none of it resulted in anything, and looking back, I'm really glad it did. I mean, it was the first book I ever wrote, and I know some people are really lucky with the first book that they ever wrote, but I needed definitely to learn more about story and my own voice and everything like that. So 2016 is now out of the way. So 2017, I had Sharp Hollows, which was The Mummy meets National Treasure. Yeah, that book was also the book of my heart because it had everything that I loved in it. It had adventure, it had romance. I really, really thought this was the book that was going to get me my agent. I was convinced. Again, I chronicled that whole drafting, revising, everything with that book on my writing vlogs, and I'm really glad I have like all these writing vlogs to look back on. I pitched in this pitch contest called Pit Mad on Twitter. I had one of the most liked pitches of the day with a typo, so that's what I'll always remember. I got a lot of agent interest on like all the tweets I sent that day, the 3 that I posted, and so I was so excited. I just sent it out to, I think it was maybe 16 or 17 agents, and I did a couple cold queries too, to people that requested my Red Riding Hood book from the year before. I got all rejections. Every single one was a rejection, and I don't know if I ever talked about that because, again, the thing about having a YouTube channel and showing these the good and bad sides of writing is that it really, really sucks when you publicly fail, and it's different than like failing quietly, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's just having a channel, having a platform, and then just eating dirt sucks. It sucks more than just being rejected, because then I have to go and tell you guys that was a bust. I failed again. That was really disappointing because I knew that Sharp Hollows was a lot stronger and better than the Red Riding Hood story. So I truly couldn't understand why that one had no requests at all. And I think I got a few personalized rejections, but the majority of them were form. And then I decided to apply for Pitch Wars that year, Pitch Wars of 2017. I got requests from four of the 6 of mentors that I submitted to, but I was not picked. However, that's when I got some really great personalized feedback from these mentors, and one of them talked about how why Sharp Hollows wasn't working, and because of that made me rewrite the whole thing in the beginning of 2018. Now we've entered 2018, and this is the year that I didn't query, and I definitely thought I would because I had a lot of projects going. So I completely rewrote Sharp Hollows with the intention of going to query that, because I was also working on Paraprides, my Witch Pirate fantasy, and that one I had started drafting in NaNoWriMo of 2017, the previous year, and I wrote 60,000 words in that month, and I think I finished, I really forget when I finished the first draft of Paraprides. It was February or March, somewhere around there, of 2018. And then I decided that this was the book that I was going to try to get into author mentor match with. So I spent pretty much between rewriting Sharp Hollows and revising this book, I pretty much spent the entire summer doing both of these things. And then in October of that year, I submitted Paraprides to Author Mentor Match. And a lot of you know, this was the book that got me into Author Mentor Match, was my pirate fantasy. So my mentor was Laura Beth Johnson. She's a Penguin author, and she wrote Goddess in the Machine. At the time, she was in the middle of a deadline, so she said, I'll get your edit letter to you in December, which she did. So while I had submitted Paraprides to Author Mentor Match, as all advice goes, you're always supposed to work on something new while you're waiting for news on something else. So that was when the birthplace of Cruel Family came. So if I backed it up just a little bit, I know there's a lot of like dates going on here, and this is just, I'm going off of my memory right now, so I'm probably forgetting some things. But I had this idea of a scene during 2017 Pitch Wars about this girl, I knew nothing about her, who had left her villainous family and they wanted her back and she didn't want to go. That's all I had of it, of the summer of 2017. And I was gonna do that project for NaNoWriMo 2017, but that's when I got the Witch Pirate Paraprides idea, and I went with that one instead because that one was a little bit more fleshed out at the time, because all I had was that scene. I knew nothing about her, I knew nothing about the family, I knew nothing about the world or what it would even be, if it was a fantasy, if it was what, like that's all I saw was just that scenario. So during the Author Mentor Match waiting period, I was actually at my critique partner's house. Amanda, I've talked about her so much. She is my closest critique partner. She's one of my closest friends. And I went to her house in Oklahoma for us to do like a mini writing retreat at her house. And this is where we were really brainstorming different ideas. And I mentioned to her this idea that I had. And I'm like, I just don't know what it would be though, or like what's going on with it. And she's like, you need to look up TV tropes, which is a website. And she's like, just look through different tropes and see what you feel pulled towards. And it's funny because the book doesn't really have this anymore, but I saw the step sibling trope, and that immediately reminded me of Cruel Intentions. And it reminded me how much I loved Cruel Intentions. I loved that movie so much, and I love how pretty much what happens when teenagers are left to their own devices with a lot of money. And I thought I like this, and it surrounded a bet, and I decided that I wanted to bet in this book. Cruel Intentions kind of reminded me of the Borgia family, which is, if you don't know, considered Italy's first crime family back in the Italian Renaissance, because they were super corrupt and they infiltrated the Catholic Church. The patriarch was the Pope at one point, and it was just like the era of the papacy that was pretty much so far away from like the actual morals of Catholicism that they had to do like a complete overhaul after this dude died. I was really, really interested in like the family and the historical figures that kind of went into this. So then I was like, okay, here we go. This is the book I'm gonna write. So I wanted it to be super, super tropey and soapy, and just have all my favorite things when it comes to romance and tropes, and I just was really excited to write it. I wrote it from October, the very, very end of October, to I think I finished the first draft in March or May. It might have been May, because I was also revising Pair Prides at this point, doing both at the same time, which is difficult when you work full-time like I do. So now we're into 2019, and this is where everything kind of fell apart for me. A lot of you guys know this. I started getting depressed towards the end of the year. I made the mistake of trying to query Cruel Family, which at the time I had named it A Sweet Cruel Poison. For querying purposes, I thought that was buzzy, sexy enough to grab attention to agents. So I probably shouldn't have queried when I wasn't really mentally strong at the time, because querying takes so much out of you, and I was so convinced that this book was ready. I felt like that. I felt like I'll get an agent. I'll definitely get an agent with this book, because this book is the best one I've ever written. I sent out my first queries at the end of 2019. I did get some interest. So I do have my stats for this one, because obviously this didn't go so very well for me. So I sent 16 queries with my first attempt with Cruel Family. And I got 2 full requests, 1 partial request, and those ended in rejections. And then I got a total of 13 rejections. All of them were from what I remember. And then just having the combination of that and also being depressed, that was, and I never talked about this in my I'm Back video for YouTube, but yeah, writing, that was the reason why I quit writing, because writing hurt too much. I was too depressed to write because I just didn't understand what was wrong with this book. That was also a contributing factor to my depression. Yay. I think I sent my last query in January, and it was a full request. But that ended in a rejection. It actually ended in a rejection. This is so sad. It ended in a rejection when I flew to Mexico for Connor's wedding, and my phone was, my data was off, everything was off, because I didn't want to pay for like international calls or anything like that. So by the time we got to the resort, I connected to their Wi-Fi, and this was the first thing that popped up when I connected to Wi-Fi. So we're trying to check into our room, and I see a full rejection in my inbox, and it just messes with you when you see stuff like that. We get back to the States, and it's COVID. Everything kind of just stopped, and I still wasn't writing, and I didn't want to write. It was just still just a sore topic. And even when like my family would ask me, but like, hey, are you writing? I'd be like, no, and I don't want to talk about it, because I just like was so sad. May of 2020, in June of 2020, I decided I'm ready. I'm ready to fix this book, because I don't want to give up on it yet. This is the book that I want to get an agent with. So I enlisted the help of some really great people, and Katie Ann, who's an author tuber. I've talked about her so much. She helped me fall in love with my story again. Like, her feedback was so incredible. She really helped me get it to the level it needed to get at for querying. And then after she touched it, Alex Brown, who is also an agent and writer, and Marina's both read this new draft. This is when I decided to take the adoptive sibling out of it, the trope out of it, because he is still a priest, so it's still a forbidden relationship. The reasons why Alex said, like, I think you should change this so they're not adoptive siblings anymore. She wasn't sure how agents would take that, and I agreed. I did agree. So at the end, I decided to remove that, because I really wanted this book to have like the best possible chance in the querying trenches. I mean, you guys saw those last few vlogs of me in December, towards the end of October. The reason why Preptober did horrible for me was because I was revising this book, and I finished it like on Halloween, and I said I was gonna like, I'm sorry you guys, but I said I was gonna like let it sit for a month and revisit it after NaNoWriMo. And that's just like not what happened. To be fair, I didn't actually go into November with the intention of starting to query, but in the back of my mind, after I finished my Halloween deadline, I guess, I knew that it was query ready. But of course I had a lot of doubts. Like, what if this is not really good at all? What if I still biff it in querying with all these changes that I made? I try to devote this time to NaNoWriMo, but I only got a few days in, and you guys know that if you guys watch the vlogs, because the longest week of our American lives was in the beginning of November, so the election. And I was so stressed because I was so scared that Trump was going to get reelected that my stomach was in knots, as I'm sure a lot of you guys were too. I was sitting in here trying to write for NaNoWriMo and watching CNN on my second monitor, and then Alexa messaged me. Oh, I'm gonna have to turn Alexa off. Okay, so Alexa, she just pinged me and she's like, hey, I think you should start querying. And I'm like, scared. I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, oh man, it's like funny looking back at this because I've been glancing at Query Tracker in the weeks leading up to this because I was looking at the agents that I had to get rid of, that I couldn't query anymore because I tried querying them at the end of 2019, and I was trying to build a list. I'm also kind of out of the game with agents. Like, of course I know I have research under my belt, but I don't know like a lot of like the new changes because I haven't really been paying attention to it for like the past 9-10 months. So Alexa was like, there's this new agent I think you should query. She's a new agent from Triada and I think you should query her. So she's taking clients now. So I'm like, okay, let me go investigate who she is because I have no idea who she is. I mean, you guys know how it'll end. Like it was Elle. She mentioned that she liked romantic fantasies, like sweeping romances with heists and fantasy, and I'm like, okay, maybe she would like this. But she was a newer agent, so she didn't have like a lot of like interviews or other info that you can find to kind of see what an agent would like. So then her and then 4 others, I decided, or maybe it was like 2 or 3 others. It was a very, very small batch that I decided to wish out there into the internet. What's funny is that I used the same query that I did in 2019. Alexa helped me tweak it just like a little bit, but we pretty much, it was the same query that I used in 2019. We both agreed it was a good query. So I don't know why my request rate is probably the writing. It probably was just like, it wasn't right. It was timing wise, it wasn't the right. So, and of course my opening pages were a lot different too. The first line has always been the same, which is mixing drinks was a lot like mixing poisons. That has always been the opening line. And I sent it out and then I waited. The first 3 that got back to me were all rejections and they were all forms, and I started questioning my entire life because I said and I'm sure Alexa was so annoyed by all the texting that I sent her, like, this is it, I'm not gonna, it's all wrong. I'm questioning everything. I don't think it's good anymore. And she's like, just send out more. Just send out more. That was always her advice, which is really great advice. So every time, so those 3 rejections in, I sent 3 more out. But what worried me was that they were all form rejections. Maybe this is just my theory, but it was 2020. And I feel like maybe agents were going the form rejection route a lot because they just didn't have the bandwidth. Pandemic. I'm hoping that that's the case. And then 1 month later, on December 3rd, I got an email. It was from Elle, and I'm like, here we go. Another rejection. I can't wait. And so I click on the email and she was requesting the full. So I'm like, oh, I feel good now. Of course, it's like an instant hit of it's an incredible high every time you get an email that's not a rejection. I sent off my full to her, and then that was that for that day. So the next day was December 4th, and it was Pit Mad, and I was going back and forth with whether I wanted to participate or not because of, again, public failure. If I didn't get any likes, I would have been more upset that I failed publicly than the fact that no agents liked it, if that makes sense. So I ended up only tweeting twice because I was getting a little nervous. I was starting to feel let down because it was a very different experience than doing Pit Mad back in 2017. Tweets are public and you can look at them, but by the end of the night was when I started feeling a little bit better because I got likes from very reputable agencies and agents. So then I was like, okay, so it wasn't a total loss. And I feel like I don't have to delete these tweets. What was interesting was that another agent from Triada had liked my tweet. And I didn't want to like just not query them because it was Triada, and I was like, they're all really good agents there. So then I was like, okay, so I emailed this agent and I was like, hey, by the way, Elle requested my full yesterday. So I don't know if you guys have like a protocol of how you guys decide these things, because I know that happens sometimes in like pitch contests, but since Elle wasn't doing the pitch contest, I was just like, this is what's up. So then this agent was like, hey, no problem, Elle and I will figure it out between the two of us. So I'm like, okay. So then all the agents that I had queried from PitMed, they all requested the full. So off it went. And then crickets. Literal crickets for the rest of December. I guess I did kind of reveal that I did start querying because I was on a live with Alexa. I just mentioned that I started querying because I thought if you saw my PitMed tweets, you know that I'm starting to query. So I just didn't really say anything like here on my channel. So I did mention on that live that I did start querying, and that how I don't recommend querying in December because it's literally the worst. And I do still think that because it's just like the holidays, and a lot of agents are closed for the holidays, or they just, you know, it's the end of the year and they're just trying to like get stuff out of their inboxes. But then I didn't hear anything from, not even like from the queries I had out, nothing throughout the entire December besides those fulls that I sent from PitMed. I mean, it's just the waiting game. It's terrible. It sucks. And I didn't really know how to feel. I started getting like really discouraged again because I was like, it's not going to happen with this book. It's not going to happen. How are you going to like talk to your channel about how you fucking failed again and how nothing's happening to Cruel Family and you're starting something new? So it was like I started spiraling, as someone like me does. Wednesday, January 5th, was it 6th? The day of the insurrection, I was driving back from my parents' house in the morning and I was listening to my audiobook, but then I had to like stop listening to it because I kept thinking about Cruel Family and how much I loved this book and how much I didn't want to give it up and how much there were so many things I still wanted to tell with the story. And it was both bittersweet as I was thinking this and driving, but also like it still like excited me because I'm like, I love this story and these characters so much. And it just, an hour and a half, that was me thinking about this book on Friday. It's really weird how like timing and fate and everything like that happens. I was just casually in my living room doing my work, watching CNN coverage about the after effects of the insurrection, and I got this email and it was from Elle, and I didn't even think rejection. I didn't think anything. All I was thinking was, oh, her and the other agent at Triada had decided what to do. Like, it's gonna be an email that just says like, hey, so-and-so has decided to read this, just giving you an update. I really thought that was gonna be the email. I didn't even like hesitate or, you know, send a quick prayer up to Sky Daddy at all. I just clicked on it because I thought, I know what this is gonna be. And then I stopped because the email was 2 sentences. And when I say that I analyzed these sentences for hours after I read it, I'm not even exaggerating, because it was 2 quick sentences that I don't want to get out and read it, but it was just like, hey Lainey, I read your book, I really, really loved it, and I would like to talk to you. That was it. So I screenshotted it, I sent it to Alexa, and I'm like, and it's still kind of early, so like for California time, she wasn't up yet, and I was like, Alexa, oh my god, is this a call? What's going on? And then I sent it to Lindsay Puckett and my critique partner Amanda, and I did eventually tell my parents. They kind of knew I started querying again, but they knew writing was a sore topic for me for all 2020, that they just like, they don't ask unless I bring it up. I was like, is this a call? Oh my god, is this one of those offer calls that everybody dreams of, this kind of email? But then the unsureness settled in, and I was like, this could also be an R&R, which it's like, R&Rs are still good. Like, a fact that an agent wants to call you up and talk to you on the phone about your book, that's incredible. However, an offer is obviously better than an R&R. So I started just getting, my stomach was in knots. You guys, I didn't eat. We set up the call for Sunday, and that was the worst 48 hours. Saturday I woke up and I was like, oh. I watched all of Bridgerton. Just laid on the couch, watched all 8 episodes. Because I'm like, I just need something that will make the day go faster. So watched all of Bridgerton. Then I played Among Us for 6 hours with House Salt. And I didn't tell them at the time because I was so scared, and I just didn't want anybody to get their hopes up if it ended up being like an R&R. So I'm like, I can't tell anybody else. So I kept it really quiet. Sunday came, I took down my Christmas tree because I needed to also still fill the time, and that was something I needed to do. And came back into my office right before noon. I had all my questions ready because in the event that it was an offer call, I had to have my questions ready. And Elle called me at noon and we talked for over an hour about the book, and she said because I was still, when I answered the phone, I was like, offer, R&R, what's gonna happen? And I mean, she said in the first 30 seconds that she wanted to offer, so it was like the whole weight lifted off my shoulders and I was able to fully enjoy the phone conversation, and it was just so great. And I still have like all the notes that I took from the phone call with her because I was writing everything down, so I didn't want to forget it, and I had to recount it to my parents after the phone call. So I just felt really, really good about her when I was talking to her, because she totally understood the story and what I was trying to do. I was so happy when I got off the phone with her because I truly couldn't believe that like this was happening. We set a 2-week deadline because that's what, you know, industry standard. I had to reach out to everybody who still had my full and everybody that I still had outstanding queries with. So Monday I did start getting like, I think I got like maybe, hold on, I wrote it down. So I got 5 rejections pre-offer from the query alone, and then I got another 5 rejections from just based on the query. These are the ones that still rejected it after the offer, and they're all really, really nice. They just said, you know, congratulations, but this isn't really for me, or I don't have time to read, so I'm gonna have to step aside, but congratulations. So I mean, those 5 rejections were like, okay, who cares? And then I got another email from another agent, and she wanted to read the full, so I was like, cool. So I sent her the full. The next day, that same agent got back to me, and they also wanted to set up a call because they had read the book in less than 24 hours and they really wanted to talk to me. And then honestly, when I read that email, I officially entered Libra crisis mode, because that is a worst case scenario for a Libra. Decide between 2 people. And the next day I did talk to that agent, and it just sucked because that agent was so enthusiastic about the book. They were really great, really seasoned in the industry, came from a great agency. I can talk about that too. Like, I carefully picked all the agencies and agents that I queried. And I mean, I could talk about agent lists and how I built my agent list in a future video if that's of interest. They both felt right, but Elle felt more right, if that makes sense. And that's just like where my heart had to follow me. And that's just how I decided. I hate rejecting people. I could never be an agent because I felt so terrible having to send in a rejection email to the second agent. But I mean, it's still really cool to say that I got 2 offers, but I wouldn't wish that on anybody, for someone who's like me, having to decide between 2 people. But then when the deadline came, I emailed Elle and I said, I would love for you to represent me. I cannot wait to start working with you. And that's it. That's pretty much how it happened. I signed the contract on Tuesday. I announced on Tuesday too. So, and you might have seen it if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, but I did announce that. And if you don't follow me on Instagram and Twitter, you definitely should, because I actually just recently changed my handles, because that was one of my soft goals, was that I was allowed to change my handles to @lainey.kress, my full name, when I got an agent. And when I got an agent, I changed my handle. I was a little bittersweet about getting rid of gingerreadslainey on Instagram, because I didn't really have a problem with that one. I just want everything to be uniform, because now it's like I'm an agented writer and I need to like start crafting my brand a little bit more. That's the story of how I got my agent. And I'm so, so happy. Still in disbelief. I didn't want to I didn't even really tell anybody either, because I was like so afraid that like this was all not true, or I was gonna get an email from Elle that said like, JK, I actually don't want to represent you anymore. So I was just like, I just felt like I was walking around with like too good to be true news that I just like, man, I'm still in disbelief, honestly. People who like stats, I sent 19 queries in total. Query rejections, I got 5, and then I got another 5 after my offer. 5 full requests and 1 partial request. 4 I had to close, so I think there was like 1 full that I had to close because they didn't get back to me in my deadline, and then 3 queries that they never responded to, but their loss, right? And I had 2 offers. Oh my god, I truly cannot believe that I have an agent now. And like, there was like a while now that I've been feeling like my channel has been pretty stagnant, and like I just didn't know like how to move forward with my content because I've just been spinning in circles for the past 4.5 years. I've been trying to get an agent for 4.5 years. And but now I feel like there's so much opportunity and so many ideas, and I'm feeling so creative, and I'm so excited, and I can't wait to continue doing a lot more with my channel, taking you guys on the journey of being an agented writer and trying to get a book deal now. Like, we're finally like on that path, you guys. And I didn't really get emotional. I didn't cry, but I started getting a little choked up when you guys were congratulating me of getting an agent, and the ones that were like, I've been watching you for years and I'm so happy, and just like, that just like really touched me because you guys have been following me for so long, and I'm like so happy that I have this accomplishment, and you guys can see that throughout all these years of all these videos, of all these vlogs that I've been doing with writing. There's finally a payoff for it. I just want to say thank you for sticking around with me. You know, the internet is pretty incredible. So yeah, so thanks guys. That's the complete story of how I got my agent. I'm gonna say it again. I'm represented by Elle Thompson at Triada, and I am so happy. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for like the work we're gonna do together, and I'm just, good things are coming, you guys, and I'm so happy. If you don't know who I am, if you just clicked on this video, my name is Lainey. I make a lot of videos on my writing process, my writing journey, a lot of writing vlogs, and I also read a ton of romance books. So that is pretty much what you can expect from my videos. I hope you guys all have a really great day, and I will see you guys all very soon. Bye!